All right, hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are working our way through the Gospel of John, chapter 14, and chapters 13, 14, 15, and 16. Really, John gives us some insight in what is commonly known as the Last Supper. And the Last Supper, when you're reading the other Gospels, you see a focus on the meal, they're eating the meal. And then John focus on after they eat the meal, now Jesus is just pouring out his heart to them. And really what he is saying, a lot of this it's like the foundation of what would later be expanded upon in the epistles. So when you look at the New Testament, the New Testament is broken down with the Gospels. You have the four Gospels, which is the life of Jesus, the ministry, primarily the public ministry of Jesus, the last 3.5 years of his life. Then you have the book of Acts, this is the beginning of the church. And then you have the epistles written by Paul, Peter, James, John, okay, concluding with the book of Revelation. Now, the epistles are instructive. They're teaching. The purpose is they are teaching. So, with that, let's jump into it. John, chapter 14. Now, we left off at verse 14. I'll start back at verse 12 just to bring us up to speed. Verse 12 says, I assure you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and he will do even greater works because I'm going to the Father. And then whatever you ask in my name, I will do it so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it. Now, the question comes up when you read something like this in Scripture. Does Jesus really, literally mean if you ask anything? Well, with that phrase, you could ask anything, but notice the next phrase. He says, if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. Now, what I said was that there's a context to this statement to be understood. Now, how do we know? Because sometimes what you have in Scripture is, I'm trying to think, what's the best way to phrase it, where, and there is, literary phrases for what I'm trying to say here. Figures of speech would be one. And then in general, how we talk. So for example, has any of your parents ever, you heard the phrase, your parents said, you better stop or I'm going to knock you into tomorrow, right? Well, okay, so literally your mother wasn't talking about knocking you, time traveling you to the next day, right? But you certainly understood what she meant. Stop or I will stop you. Now, another way is that Jesus says that if your right eye offends you, pluck it out. It's better for you to enter into life, maim, than to be tossed fully, body, right, into hell. Well, so did Jesus literally mean pluck your eyes out? Now, I have yet to see anyone really to obey that literally. And obviously there may be some crazies around, but in general, even among the crazies, you don't really find people literally saying, and I say that this too, let me just throw this out here, because I put it in the category of the crazies. In Mark 16, where Jesus says, these signs shall follow them that believe in my name, they should cast out devils, they should speak in tongues, they should take up serpents. If they drink any deadly thing, it should not hurt them. But you have some crazies that literally have services, and I'm gonna do like these backwood ignoramuses that handle snakes. In fact, where do they even get these snakes from? But they get poisonous snakes, and they bring in cyanide poison. And as part of the worship service, they bring snakes, and they bring out snakes, and they drink cyanide poison. So that's what I mean when I say crazies. And among the crazies, they are the exception to the rule, because a lot of people go, no, I ain't gonna hang with that. I'm not hanging with that. But that's an example. By the way, that verse doesn't even say to have worship services that you do that. Now, so my point is that, okay, well, what did Jesus literally mean for you to go around and take up poisonous snake? No, that's them adding to that at best. Anyway, so when Jesus says here, if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. And last time we did show a couple of examples where the apostles, and one of the ways we could always interpret scripture correctly is, okay, let's look at the context. And then also, are there examples? Are there examples of what, you would see with this? And so we do see examples in scriptures where the apostles were threatened, and then they were threatened to stop preaching. They went and prayed, Lord, not only are they threatening us, but I'll tell you what, give us the power to even preach more. Grant us signs and wonders. And that's exactly, and Jesus answered that question right there. So does it mean that, okay, now you can make up your wish list, right? And there are people who do. Now in this particular, when Jesus said this, because we're going to get to another, I think it's in chapter 16, where Jesus is going to kind of repeat this. And then we're going to get to this, we explore this even more again. But I think specifically here, in terms of ministry, in other words, I'm sending you out. Whatever you ask, I will do it. And then the context is within the context of ministry. Not, okay, here's my wish list, Lord, I need a gold watch and, designer suits, yada, yada, yada. All right. So he says, if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. Now, verse 15, if you love me, you will keep my commands. Now, there's again a couple of things to unpack with this right here, with the next few verses. One, let's go with verse 15. If you love me, you will keep my commands. Now, in our language, in our culture, modern times, you ever hear, I never read the book, but I hear the phrase love languages, right? Somebody wrote a book, and apparently kudos to the guy who wrote the book. And basically it was love language. And then so you have people, what is your love language? Now I said, I only hear the phrase. I never read the book. And the idea is that when people say, well, what is your love language? Which is interesting, your love language. What is your love language? And so, we think God, I think, thinks like that. Do you think you can speak God's love language? Okay. I'm writing this down here, God. All right. Do you think or even in our when we say love, because remember the English word for love here, this word here is agape. Okay. And let me show you this too. I'm going to jump ahead. I want to show you this. Remember I talked about this word love? Okay, this word love. And if you love me, you will keep my commands. I'm going to come back to that because that's. But I want to show you something here. Remember we talked about love, and in the English language, we use one word for love. Now, there could be other words that we may use. For example, instead of love, we'll say affection. But the four Greek words for love would be eros, which is you see that a lot in the pornography, but the pornography, the adult film industry doesn't kind of own. They did not coin, nor did they own eros. It just simply means sexual attraction. And then there is stored, which is affection, and so we would say affection, okay, but storage, but and then there is let me see. Okay, yeah, I'm going to show you this. And then there is phileo, which is friendship, relationships. Okay, now those are all human sides. They're based upon human motives. In other words, all three of those is based upon what I find attractive with you, what I'm aroused by, what I find attractive in you. So this is what I mean when we talk about, love language, because I want to say this here, because how now do I express my love to God? Now, in our worship services, by the way, they are full of quote unquote worship songs that express our love language with God. Full, right? I mean, we close our eyes and raise our hands, and we with the from the deepest of our souls, we sing songs to God. Okay, so here's the question of the day: does God accept your offering of love, your expression of love? Think about that. Now, I want to show you this. Obviously, we'll come back to this. This is after Jesus has risen from the dead. Now, remember, the Greek word for God's love is agape. So most of the time, whenever you see love in the New Testament, it's agape. So again, when Jesus says, if you love me, that's agape. For God so loved the world, that's agape, not phileo. But I'm going to watch something here that is kind of brought out, that's brought out in this passage here. Now look at verse 15. It says, and when they had eaten breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter. Now, background story. Remember, Peter denied knowing Jesus to his face. So keep that in mind. Jesus had warned him, you're going to deny that you know me, Peter. And Peter like, oh, no, not me. Those jokers over here might, but I wouldn't. And he denied to his face. Now Jesus is risen from the dead. Oopsie. Okay. Verse 15, and when they had eaten breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these? Assumption here that he's talking about the fish that they caught. Yes, Lord, he said to him, you know that I love you. Feed my lambs, he told them. A second time he asked him, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Jesus asked, he said to him, you know I love you. Shepherd my sheep, he told them. He asked him a third time, Simon, son of Jonas, do you love me? And Peter was grieved. He asked him a third time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Now, here's where the Greek language is going to give us, okay? The Greek language is going to give us The Greek language is going to give us some insight again to this. Now remember that, so there's two Greek words that's at play here. One is agape, and then the other is phileo. Remember, relationships, friendships, right? The kind of relationships we would have with your friend, with your mother, with your father, with your, even your wife in that respect. Relationship, your husband and wife, relationships. Okay. So now I'm going to read this again, but I'm going to use the Greek words. Simon, son of John, do you agape me? Right? More than these. Yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you. Feed my lambs, he told them. A second time he asked him, Simon, son of John, do you agape me? Yes, Lord, he said to him, you know that I phileo you. Shepherd my sheep, he told him. He asked him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you phileo me? Peter was grieved because he asked him a third time, do you phileo me? And he said, Lord, you know everything. You know that I phileo you. Now, I wanted to bring that exchange out because it's a very unique phrase, because Jesus was asking one thing and Peter was answering another with another, right? In other words, Jesus, and so when we kind of go back here, and here's why that's kind of important. Verse 15, if you love me, Jesus said, if you love me. Now, if I ask the question with every single Christian, every single one, if you say, do you love God? They would, without a doubt, say, of course I love Jesus. It would be insulted that you would ask. But then I ask the question, I throw this back. Does God accept your love? Think about that. Does God accept your love? You say you love him, but the love that you say you love God with, does he accept that love? Right? And that's why I gave you that exchange between Peter and Jesus. Jesus was asking him something. So here is this, verse 15. If you agape me, because this is the only love that God is accepting. He doesn't care about your feelings. He doesn't care about, if you agape me, here is this criteria. You will keep my commands. So that's the measure there. If you keep my commands. He doesn't care about your feelings. He doesn't care about your emotions. He doesn't care about, he said, if you agape me, here's this criteria. You will keep my commands. So next time you're in a worship service and you get the nice music and all that, just remember that. I'm not telling you not even to sing worship songs. But just understand that, again, he doesn't care about your feelings. If you want to please God, if you want to be able to say, God is accepting, then he says, keep my commands. So now you can measure your love. You can measure your love by, are you keeping God's command? Wow, right? That's interesting there. If you love me, you will keep my commands. And this is going to be repeated throughout. But I just wanted you to see that, how we oftentimes think, how we how we think we could give something to God. Let me just, thank God he's merciful, because, but he doesn't, he doesn't just take anything you give to him, though. He's already told us, if you love him, if you agape him, because agape is the only kind of love that he accepts, with that, how God, the criteria for that is keep his commands. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP The Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome, and I'll see you in the next study.